Alaska, a land of endless wilderness, breathtaking, remote, and unforgiving. Within its silence lie secrets carved in ice, buried in rivers, and still walking among us, nameless. Tonight, we uncover three mysteries that remain unsolved. Eklutna Annie, a young woman known only by her bones, Erin Gilbert, who vanished on a first date, and John Pezzenti Jr., a wildlife photographer murdered in his own home. 3 lives, 3 puzzles Alaska refuses to let go. In July of 1980, construction workers clearing land near the small community of Eklutna, just outside Anchorage, made a discovery that would haunt Alaska for decades. Beneath a shallow grave, barely covered by soil and brush, they uncovered skeletal remains. The body belonged to a young woman, believed to be between 16 and 25. Her torn clothing still clung to what little was left. Time and exposure had eroded much of her story before anyone even knew she existed. Investigators immediately faced a grim puzzle. No missing person reports in Anchorage or across Alaska matched her description. There was no wallet, jewelry, or belongings to identify her. Dental records yielded nothing. She had no name, so police called her Eklutna Annie. Detectives speculated she might have been a runaway or transient who drifted into Anchorage during the late 1970s. The pipeline boom had drawn workers, money, and crime in equal measure. Nightclubs, bars, and the city's red light district offered both opportunity and danger. It was a place where someone without ties could disappear unnoticed, their absence never reported. Years later, the story took a chilling turn. Serial killer Robert Hansen, convicted of murdering at least 17 women and suspected of many more, confessed to being responsible for her death. Hansen was known for luring women, often dancers or sex workers, with promises of money before abducting them. He sometimes flew victims into the wilderness in his private plane, hunting them like game. To investigators, Hansen described Eklutna Annie as his first victim, and yet, even with his confession, the mystery endured. Hansen offered no name. He could not or would not say who she was, where she came from, or how she crossed his path. Some wondered if he was being truthful at all, or if he simply claimed her to inflate his own dark legacy. Without proof, there was only his word and a nameless body buried in the woods. Police released sketches from her remains, first simple composites, later advanced forensic reconstructions. With each attempt, her face returned, auburn hair, delicate features, the face of a young woman frozen in time. Newspapers printed the images. Television stations broadcast them. Flyers spread far beyond Alaska. Still, no family stepped forward to say, "That's her." Who was she? Had she left home chasing freedom or adventure? Was she estranged, cut off from those who should have searched? Some believe she was never reported missing at all. Others argue her family may still be alive, unaware the nameless Jane Doe in Alaska is their lost child. Perhaps she wasn't Hansen's victim at all, but someone else's. Perhaps Hansen's claim was just another deception. Others take a spiritual view, suggesting nameless victims remain restless until their identities are restored. What is certain is that the young woman known as Eklutna Annie has been denied something most take for granted: remembrance. She lies today in an Anchorage cemetery beneath a simple marker reading Jane Doe, died 1979. No birth date, no family name, no epitaph. Just a placeholder for a life cut short. Forensic artists have rebuilt her face several times over the decades, each attempt sparking a surge of hope that someone will recognize her and end her anonymity. Each time, those hopes fade. Decades have passed, but Annie's silence remains. In a state where wilderness swallows people whole, where thousands have vanished, Eklutna Annie stands apart. She is Alaska's most haunting unknown, a young woman who lived, who laughed, who had a story, but is remembered only through the grim circumstances of her death. Her grave, marked but nameless, is a reminder of lives left unfinished and secrets buried in Alaskan soil. Somewhere, someone may still remember her face, her voice, her presence. Until that moment comes, she remains Eklutna Annie, the girl without a name, waiting for her story to be told. But Alaska's mysteries are not only buried in the past. Sometimes they happen in the middle of ordinary life, at a fair with crowds all around. And before we continue, if you're fascinated by stories like these, make sure to subscribe, because these are the mysteries the world still can't explain. The Girdwood Forest Fair is one of Alaska's most beloved summer traditions. Tucked away in a mountain town south of Anchorage, it's a celebration of music, art, food, and long July daylight. For most, it's an afternoon of laughter and memories. But on July 1st, 1995, the fair became the backdrop for one of the state's most haunting mysteries, the disappearance of 24-year-old Erin Marie Gilbert. Erin was still new to Alaska. Originally from San Francisco, she had recently moved north to live with her sister and seek a fresh start. She had a warm personality, an easy smile, and was described as both adventurous and grounded. Working as a nanny while figuring out her next steps, she dreamed of building something lasting in Alaska, with its rugged beauty and sense of possibility. When a man asked her out on a date to the Girdwood Forest Fair, Erin accepted. It should have been an ordinary outing. Instead, it became the last time anyone saw her. Witnesses last spotted Erin near the fairgrounds around 6 p.m. What followed comes almost entirely from her date's account, and his story raised immediate doubts. He told investigators their car broke down as they were leaving. Claiming he went to find help, he said that when he returned, Erin was gone. No sign of her in the lot, no note, no direction of travel. But his version was inconsistent. Details shifted as he retold it. No solid evidence of car trouble was ever found. And why would Erin vanish without her purse or trying to contact her sister or anyone at the fair? Her family, alarmed when she didn't return, reported her missing immediately. Search teams flooded the area. Helicopters scanned the dense forest. Flyers covered Anchorage. For days, volunteers and law enforcement scoured trails and mountains, yet nothing surfaced. Not a shoe, not clothing, not a trace of Erin Marie Gilbert. How does someone vanish from a crowded fairground in early evening? Did she walk willingly into the forest? Or was she led or forced into the unknown? Theories emerged. Some argued she became lost in the wilderness, but search dogs, helicopters, and coordinated teams found nothing. The darker theory is foul play. Many point to her date, the last person with her, whose shifting story and questionable timeline drew suspicion. Yet no charges were ever filed, and he has never been formally named a suspect. Then come the stranger explanations. Alaska is steeped in legends, tales of spirits that lure people from safety. While not evidence, these stories echo how locals make sense of the incomprehensible. How could Erin, full of life and with so much ahead, vanish so completely that not a single clue has surfaced in nearly 3 decades? Her family has never stopped searching, Each year, they mark the anniversary with vigils, reminding the world Erin was not just a statistic, she was a sister, a daughter, a young woman with dreams unfinished. Her photo still circulates, her case remains open, and hope, however fragile, continues. The Girdwood Forest Fair still takes place each summer. Families gather, music drifts across the fields, and most leave with happy memories. But for those who know Erin's story, the fairground carries a shadow. Somewhere between the lights and the laughter, Erin Marie Gilbert stepped into a space where the known world ended and mystery began. Nearly 30 years later, her case remains unsolved. A car that may or may not have been broken down, a date who may or may not have told the truth, a family still waiting for answers. Erin's story endures as one of Alaska's most chilling vanishings. A young woman who should have had decades ahead, gone without a sound, leaving behind only questions that echo through the silence of the Alaskan woods. And then there are the mysteries that happen not on the road or in the woods, but inside the safety of home. Because even there, Alaska has questions no one can answer. John Pezzenti Jr. was not just another photographer wandering the backcountry of Alaska. He was one of the state's most respected wildlife photographers, a man whose name carried weight in artistic and conservation circles alike. His photographs appeared in the glossy pages of National Geographic and Audubon. His books, filled with breathtaking images of brown bears lumbering through rivers, wolves cutting across snowy ridges, and birds caught mid-flight against pastel skies, revealed Alaska as few could capture it. Pezzenti had a gift. He could sit for hours in silence, waiting for a perfect moment when the animal, the light, and the landscape all aligned. His work spoke to a rare patience and respect for the wild, a devotion that earned him both admiration and quiet awe. To many who knew him, he wasn't just documenting nature, he was preserving something sacred about Alaska itself. But on December 3rd, 2007, that admiration turned to horror. Friends went to check on him at his Anchorage home and made a grim discovery. John Pezzenti Jr. had been shot to death. The news rattled the community. This was not an anonymous drifter, nor a man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. This was someone who had achieved international recognition, who had touched lives through his work. For someone like Pezzenti to be killed, especially in his own home, the one place meant to provide safety and shelter, felt like an unbearable twist. Investigators combed the house. There was no sign of forced entry, no obvious struggle. Nothing seemed missing that would suggest a robbery. The killer, it seemed, had entered and left with chilling precision. Whoever had done it left no clear trace, no fingerprint of motive, no trail for detectives to follow. The questions mounted quickly. Who would want John dead? Why at his home in Anchorage, far from the wilderness where he spent most of his working life? And why did the investigation stall so quickly, as though the answers themselves had been swallowed by silence? Theories began to circulate, whispered in coffee shops, in newsrooms, in quiet corners of Anchorage, where people still remembered the day the news broke. Some believed it could have been a burglary gone wrong, a crime of opportunity that escalated in violence. But that explanation faltered under scrutiny. Nothing of real value seemed to have been stolen, and the precision of the act suggested something far more deliberate. Others speculated about professional jealousy. In creative fields, especially ones tied to prestige and publication, rivalries can turn bitter. Could someone in his professional orbit have harbored resentment deep enough to end in violence? It was a theory without evidence, yet one that lingered because no better explanation filled the void. There were also darker theories that Pezzenti had stumbled into something he was never meant to see, perhaps even outside the world of photography. Alaska is vast, and its communities small. Secrets can run deep, and crossing the wrong person can have devastating consequences. But again, no proof ever surfaced, only speculation that twisted around the unanswered questions. Some framed his death as random, the victim of chance in a city not immune to crime. Yet random acts usually leave behind some trace of chaos. Pezzenti's murder carried an eerie sense of control, as though the person who carried it out knew exactly what they were doing. And then, as happens with so many unsolved tragedies, whispers moved beyond the logical. Among those who saw his photographs as more than art, a suggestion formed that those who capture the wild so intimately sometimes draw the gaze of forces beyond the human, that the act of freezing wildness into stillness, of capturing the spirits of animals and places, might call forth an attention one cannot choose. While such notions can't exist in police files, they thrive in the spaces where rational explanations collapse. In the end, all that remains are fragments. His photographs still striking, his books still on shelves, his name still remembered by those who marveled at his work. But the man behind the lens, the one who crawled through snowdrifts, who waded through rivers, who waited silently in the dawn light for a wolf to pass, was stolen by violence. His murder was never solved. No suspect has ever been arrested. No motive has ever been uncovered. Today, nearly 2 decades later, his case still sits in Anchorage's cold files, a haunting reminder that even those who dedicate their lives to beauty and truth can be taken in the ugliest of ways. For Alaska, the silence surrounding his death is almost unbearable. For those who knew him, the loss is not only personal, but cultural, a reminder of how quickly a life and a voice can vanish. John Pezzenti Jr. left behind images that remind the world of the wild's grandeur and fragility, but the mystery of its death casts a long shadow, one that lingers with each passing year. The lens he once lifted to the wilderness is gone, and with it, the man who saw Alaska in ways no one else could. 3 mysteries, 3 unanswered questions in the land of the midnight sun. Eklutna Annie, the woman without a name. Erin Gilbert, the young woman who vanished at a fair. John Pezzenti, the photographer whose eye for beauty was ended by violence. No answers, just silence. Which mystery stayed with you the most? What do you think really happened? Tell us in the comments. And if you're ready for the next descent into the unknown, subscribe. Because Alaska doesn't just hide its secrets, it keeps them frozen forever.